Welcome to Mountain Moving Moment. My name is Philip Amiola. This is part 4 in our series of discussions on making sense of everyday life. You've heard a lot about discovering your purpose and finding your calling that you sometimes get confused or maybe even depressed by the fact that you can't seem to place your hands on exactly what it is. One day you are so sure that, yes, this is my calling. And the next day you think, oh, I didn't really get it the other time. Now I know this is it. Not too long after that, you find something new that makes you conclude, I'm not sure anymore. If you've ever experienced this, the first thing you need to understand is that it's normal because life is never static. We're always in a transition. That's why it's a big mistake to interpret the overall context of your life in light of your current situations and circumstances. Imagine if Moses had defined himself by his position in Pharaoh's palace or by his role in Jethro's business. Okay? When he was in Egypt, imagine if he had felt like, okay, so I'm a prince and that is all my life is all about. Or when he was busy with his father-in-law's sheep and cattle and everything, he was a shepherd in the wilderness of Midian. Imagine if he had summarized his life's assignment by that experience. Look at David too. Imagine if he had assumed his purpose or assumed his calling based on his experiences in taking care of his father's sheep. Then let's look at Joseph. What do you think would have happened if he had got depressed in the prison or if he had limited his calling to the context of his role in the Egyptian government? Think about that. Okay, he left prison, became a prime minister. Okay, before all of that, he was sold into slavery. Imagine if he had concluded on his assignment or concluded on his purpose at one of those points. In the same way, you will find yourself playing multiple roles as you go through life. These roles are not your calling or purpose, but every single one of them can be used by God to lead you into where He wants you to be. If you first offer yourself as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to Him, and then approach everything that you do, down to your eating and drinking, as if you are doing it for God. So your business is not to decode the full import of God's calling or understand the details of His purpose at once. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's like reading a scroll that, okay, you keep seeing what is next as you unfold the scroll. It's not something that you understand at once. So your business is simply to keep in step with God as He reveals the plan progressively. Okay? You must understand that you can't fulfill destiny in one day, but you can fulfill destiny on a daily basis. That's important. Take note of it. You cannot fulfill destiny in one day, but you can fulfill destiny on a daily basis. It's the same way with finding your purpose, finding your calling, discovering exactly what you are meant to be doing on earth, okay? Discovering what will make every day of your life meaningful. You won't find it in one day. It's a daily affair, okay? In my experience, I found that this simply boils down to running my race daily, not as someone beating the air like Apostle Paul describes it, but as someone who is conscious of the prize. And this prize is the high calling of God in Christ. Now, when you look at this and you combine it with what we have in Romans chapter 12, 1 to 2, where we are being admonished to be transformed by the renewing of our mind and not to be conformed to this world, when you combine the fact that you need to run your race daily as someone who is conscious of the price. When you combine that fact with the fact that we need to renew our minds and to be transformed, okay, instead of being conformed to the world's way of doing things, you will find that your calling will unfold in the process of getting busy with the details of everyday life in such a way that you are bringing glory to God. Now, what I'm saying is this: you approach every detail of your life, your business, your work, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children, with your parents, with your boss, with the stranger you met in the market. You approach every detail of your life as an offering to God Okay, you see it as I am doing this for God, I am doing this in line with a grand plan for my life, and everything matters. Okay, everything matters, and everything is a sacrifice that I am offering to God. When you live your life with that mindset and you pay attention to all the details, you want to honor God with all the details of your life, then your calling will start to unfold. Okay, this is what the Bible refers to as running your race. You are living every detail of your life to the glory of God. So you are running your race. Okay, and for me, I have considered race as an acrostic based on what I have observed in my life and in what I have seen in the lives of other successful, purpose-driven people. I like to simplify things and put things in a way that I can easily understand and remember. So I looked at race as an acrostic with each letter meaning something. Okay, so for me, race, RACE, means relationships, attitude, character, and education. The R is for relationships, A for attitude, C for character, and E for education. That is the way I think of running my race. Okay, if you pay attention to these four areas and relate intelligently with them, you will never have to live another day in drudgery and confusion. Rather, you will start receiving insights and recognizing patterns that will make each day another step into the fullness of your God-given purpose. So by the time you start watching your relationships, watching your attitude, paying attention to your character, investing in self-education, you will see that every day will be exciting. You won't wake up thinking, oh, it's another day. You wake up with excitement. You know that your life matters. You know that your life counts for something. You know that you are working towards a higher goal. Okay, you have a higher calling that you are working towards, and you know that you are going to get there, and your life is going to count for something. Okay, so that will help you to find meaning in life, and it will help you to make sense of everyday life. You are not just going through the motions, you are not just enduring the drudgery. No, you are going somewhere and you know how to get there. Okay, so let's talk about each of these four areas. Relationships first. Everything that God will do in your life will happen in the context of relationships. You need to settle that. Even your entry into this sphere of human existence came about as a result of a relationship between your dad and your mom. Okay, you cannot do any significant thing on your own. You will always need relationships. Okay, now without your father and your mother coming together, you wouldn't even be here. So we can't even begin to talk about discovering purpose or finding your calling if that relationship did not happen in the first place. You might not have realized it, but your family plays an important role in helping you wake up to your calling. And they do this both by what they nurture and by what they smother. Now, think about that. Let me give an example from my own life. As a child, I remember in primary four, I think I should have been like maybe 8 years or 9 years old then. I teamed up with a friend, okay, Taiwo Jeremy is his name, for those of you that might know him. Okay, we came together and we started making toy televisions. We used cardboard, magazine cutouts, and we made these toy televisions which we sold to our classmates and other pupils in school. But in the process of time, my elder brother got to know we attended the same school, and then he went home and told them that this is what Philip is doing in school. And my dad got concerned. What is happening, young man? See, this is not what we sent you to do in school. We sent you to learn. Okay, you love money too much. Why will you be doing this? The love of money is in your heart, this boy. But the truth is, it was not the love of money that was driving me to do that. It was something on my inside. It was, this entrepreneurial drive. Okay, it had been there right from time, but okay, I didn't know it, but I was living it out. But my dad interpreted it in a different way, and that kind of smothered that part of me for many years until later, okay, it came up again, and I started, growing it. Now, the point is, at that time that it was smothered, there was a way I felt. I knew that something, was being killed inside of me. I knew that a part of me was being taken away. So that feeling would communicate something to me in relation to an aspect of finding my purpose or discovering exactly what I should be doing. Okay. Now, another example, I loved to read as a child. I read a whole lot. It was more like a competition. I had friends that, okay, you wanted to see who would finish reading first. And most of the books I read as a child came from my dad's library. And so, in that way, my dad encouraged that aspect of me. My dad helped me to develop good reading habits, which have contributed significantly to what I am doing now and who I am now. So in the same way, if you look at your upbringing, you look at your family, you will find cues, okay, that will point to what your purpose is about. You will find cues that will help you uncover what you should be doing with your life. And these cues are not only from what your family or the people closest to you encouraged, it will also come from what they discouraged if you pay attention to it. So apart from this, your family also plays a vital role in forming your values, habits, and character. And all of these things will eventually affect who you turn out to be. Now, as important as the family is, you need to pay attention to other relationships too. It's not just your family alone, okay, that we're talking about when we are talking about relationships. You need to relate intelligently with other people in your various spheres of influence, your colleagues at work, the people you meet on a daily basis, your neighbors, the people in your community, your church members, everywhere you find yourself. Every relationship in your life, you must relate intelligently with each of them. Know why each person is there, respect each person, and then relate in such a way that they can advance your life and not hold you back. Okay? Look at your life as if it's a stage play, and then everyone in your relational constellation would be the cast. Everybody that you are connected to, they would be the cast in that stage play if your life were a stage play. So what is your role in that stage play, and how are you preparing yourself for it? Who are the main characters? Who are the extras? What script are you acting out? How are your rehearsals preparing you for the main performance? These are some questions that you need to think about. Okay, don't just gloss over them. Think about these questions, imagine it, and then answer for yourself. Now, after you have considered all the other relationships in your life, there is a relationship that is the most important, and that's your relationship with God. You need to cultivate your relationship with God. And in the cast that we just described, okay, God will ultimately play the role of director and producer if your life is going to turn out the way it should, because he's the author of life in the first place. So you defer to him, okay, as the director and producer of the stage play that you call your life. Now, how do you do this? You do it by imbibing his thoughts. God is not visible. We can't see God. We can only perceive him, okay? So we relate with him in the realm of thoughts. That means it is important for you to imbibe the thoughts of God. That's why I said, my thoughts are not your thoughts and my ways are not your ways. Now, the challenge is for us to make our thoughts his thoughts and to make our ways his ways, to align and synchronize our thoughts and our ways with his, okay? So how do you do that? You do it as you imbibe his thoughts in the place of prayer and meditation, studying and living out his word as revealed in the Bible, aligning yourself with the promptings of his spirit in your heart, and being actively involved with the spiritual family. The spiritual family in this context is usually represented by a local church. Okay, you need to be part of a family of believers that will encourage you, that will grow your faith, and that will deliver God's counsel to you. Some of the things that God has planned for your life will be revealed in the context of the local church. Okay, as you get involved in the service unit, for example, you discover that some abilities that you did not know are coming out. Somebody sees something in you and gives you a role, and that develops something on your inside. Okay, now look at many stars that we have today. I don't want to start mentioning names, but if you look at many of the stars that we have today, many of them have their roots in the local church. They started doing something, then one thing led to another, and then they entered into their calling. So this is very, very important. Okay, so we've talked about relationships, we've talked about different aspects of relationship and how you should pay attention to that. And that's the hard part of our acrostic in the word race. So what now we move to A, which stands for attitude. It has been said that your attitude determines your altitude. I'm sure you've heard that before. And many times, this attitude that we're talking about is a function of perspective. I remember the story of the janitor who met US President John F. Kennedy when he visited NASA Space Center. I think that was sometimes in the 1960s. The president visited NASA's Space Center and he met this janitor and introduced himself to him. Okay, so after introducing himself to the janitor, the president asked him, "What do you do here? What do you do at NASA?" And you can imagine how this janitor responded. He said, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon." He was a janitor mopping the floor, and he had a different perspective about it. So can you imagine the sense of purpose behind that perspective? Okay, and that is what determined his attitude. So this janitor would approach his work with a different kind of attitude because he didn't see it as just mopping the floor and all of that. He saw it as he was helping put a man on the moon. So he saw that what he was doing was important, what he was doing mattered, what he was doing, it counts. Without that aspect of his work, things would not go as they should. So even if others considered him as the least important person in the entire space project, he didn't see himself that way. He saw himself as a crucial part of the entire project, and that is the fact. It is true. So he was not just mopping the floor, he was helping put a man on the moon. That is perspective, and that perspective would affect how he approached his work. The perspective would influence his attitude. Okay, now let's look at another example. Joseph, who had to serve prison term in ancient Egypt for an offense he did not commit. You can read the story in Genesis. Okay, he was sentenced to prison because his master's wife lied against him that he was going to rape her, which is far from the truth. It was actually the woman that wanted to rape Joseph. Okay, but then she ended up getting Joseph into prison because she had the authority and all of that. But Joseph was a mere slave at the time. Yet, in spite of all of that, he maintained a positive attitude. He knew that God was ordering his affairs. He was not depressed. He was not, he was not throwing a pity party. Okay, he was so joyful and composed that he eventually became the prison chief. He became the prefect, the prefect of all the prisoners, and he was in charge. He was actually in charge of the prison. You know what that means? Eventually, he made friends with an official who later introduced him to Pharaoh, and that led to the most important work of his life. Think about that. If you knew that the stranger sitting next to you would be the bridge to the next phase of your life, would you treat him or her differently? How would your attitude change if you knew that the job you despise would be the launchpad into the most significant assignment of your life? Think about it. So your perspective to everything you do matters, and that is what will determine your attitude. And your attitude eventually affects whether you find meaning in life or whether you just go through life and you are just going through, you are wondering what is happening, you are just living from day to day without focus, without direction. Okay, so this is very, very important. Now we've talked about relationships and attitude. Let's talk about character. Your character is the essence of who you are. It is what you are made of, or you can simply regard it as your composition. You know what your genetic constitution means for your body. That is exactly what your character means to your life. Okay, that's why someone observed that your character is a prophecy of your future. So if you want to live a life of meaning and significance, you cannot afford to ignore your character. You must deliberately pay attention to cultivating impeccable character. Look at the example of David. He was not planning to kill Goliath. He was not looking to become a king. He was simply developing his character. His first assignment was to take care of his father's sheep in the wilderness. Then he started serving in the king's court after killing Goliath. After that, he became a fugitive, running away from Saul, who wanted to kill him. All those experiences were important in helping him find his calling okay, let's use that word, or discover his purpose. I said let's use that word because I really don't believe that you find your calling. I believe that your calling finds you. Look at the disciples of Jesus, for example. Jesus was going and then he said, okay, he met them busy with their business and then he said, come, follow me. Now look at Samuel. Samuel was sleeping and then God called him. Look at David. Look at all the examples of the people that God called in the Bible. Look at Saul. He was busy going about his business of killing Christians, and then God accosted him and God met him. Look at Moses. He was busy with his father-in-law's sheep. You can imagine that kind of work. I don't know how many men would be happy to become maybe the shepherd of their father-in-law. Maybe you are managing your father-in-law's fleet of cars. Let's use that example, or managing your father-in-law's business. Well, it depends on the kind of business, but I don't see myself being a shepherd, okay, for my father-in-law. But that was what Moses was doing. And realize that this is somebody that came from royal background. He had lived all his life in the palace of Egypt, and Egypt was the world power at that time. So you can imagine, where he had gone to. But it was in the process of doing that God called him through the burning bush. So I believe that you don't find your calling actually finds you. So when I use the expression finding your calling, discovering your purpose, I'm only using it figuratively because that's what we're familiar with, okay? But you know what I'm talking about. So I'm using that so that I can communicate. But in the real sense of it, your calling finds you, not the other way around. We're going to discover that as we go on, okay? So David started by taking care of his father's sheep in the wilderness. Then he became Saul's assistant. He was serving in the king's court after killing Goliath. Then after that, he became a fugitive, running away from Saul, who wanted to kill him. All of those experiences helped to develop his character. He learned how to be alone without being lonely. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. You can be alone without being lonely. And if you are going to make it in life, if you're going to succeed, if you're going to do great things, that is one of the disciplines that you must learn. Okay? Bishop Wale Oke wrote a book, Alone with God. There are some situations in life that require you to be alone. Okay? When Jacob's life was going to be transformed, the Bible said that he sent his family ahead and then he stayed alone. And there he wrestled with God. That was where his life was transformed. That was where he encountered destiny and discovered purpose. So you need to learn how to be alone without being lonely. David learned that while taking care of his father's sheep in the wilderness. He had nobody with him. He was there alone. He learned how to take responsibility even when working with zero supervision. He learned how to surmount challenges and insist on high standards for himself, even when failure would be excusable. He gave his best when no one was watching. Remember the story of how a lion came to attack the sheep and he ran after the lion, killed the lion and took the sheep from his mouth. The same thing with a bear. He went after the bear, killed the bear and rescued the sheep. Now imagine if he had just run away. Wouldn't people have praised him? He would have been praised for at least saving his life. Hey, lion came and you escaped with your life. Ah, good boy, well done. People would have praised him. Nobody would have castigated him, but not David. He wouldn't take that. He would rather risk his life. He would make sure that he had done his best. He had done everything he could. He valued those sheep. Okay, so and that was a character building process. He was passing a test without knowing it. So in the same way, you are going to go through situations in life that will test your character. Okay, what are you going to do when nobody is watching? It is very, very important. So all of those experiences helped to build David's character, and it is the same way with everybody that is going to fulfill destiny and find purpose and walk in the fullness of their God-given calling. Now, unlike attitude, which can be changed almost instantaneously when given the right stimulus, it takes time to develop character. You can change your attitude at once, but your character takes time to develop. Let me illustrate that. If you are sitting beside someone and, okay, usually in church, let me start with that. Usually in church, many times the pastor would say, oh, say hello to the person sitting beside you, say good morning, greet the person. Now, does the pastor need to tell you to greet the person sitting beside you before you actually do that? It's just normal. It's just good neighborliness and just good character. Oh, hello, good morning. How are you doing? It doesn't cost you anything. But the pastor has to say, tell your neighbor good morning or tell the person sitting beside you good morning before you actually say it. Now, imagine if you were working on a project that you needed the governor's approval on, just for the sake of illustration, you needed the governor's approval on a project you're working on, and sitting beside you is the special assistant to the governor in that particular area that your project relates to. So, but you didn't know, so you just looked at him and okay, you just looked at him or looked at her and okay, it didn't matter to you. But somebody now probably sends you a text message that can you see the person sitting beside you? That's the person that will approve your proposal. What will happen to your attitude immediately? Immediately you want to strike up a conversation, you want to see how you can warm up to the person. Do you understand? So that was why we said earlier that your attitude is a function of perspective. So you can change your attitude at once, but the best thing is to actually develop your character to the point where your attitude becomes an outflow of your character. The same way that we have the genetic composition, which you cannot see, it's on your inside, you cannot see your genetic composition, physically speaking now, naturally speaking, okay, you can't see it, but you can see the expression. You can see that, okay, you have brown eyes, you can see that your hair is black, you can see that your skin is yellow or white or black, okay, all of those are expressions of your gene. It is the same way that your attitude would reflect your character. But you can still change your attitude, just like, okay, we have people that are black turning themselves to white. Okay, it's possible, but that does not change what is on the inside. Okay, so you can change your attitude the same way you can change your face with makeup. Okay, but you cannot change your character like that overnight. It takes time. Something like a gene transplant, for example, it takes time, it takes a lot of effort for you to take a different character, for you to take on a different character. Okay, it takes time. It's not something that you just do overnight, and that is what Paul was talking about when he said in Romans chapter 12, 1-2, that okay, present your body as a living sacrifice, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay, that's being transformed by the renewing of your mind is what changes your character. Okay, so that means you need to subject yourself to a process of consciously replacing your old ways of thinking with a new mindset. And this is important. Note that he said be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means your mind is the important factor here. So you need to replace the old ways of thinking, the ways you think, okay, for example, now you think only the special assistant to the governor or only big people deserve your greeting. Unconsciously, that's your thinking. That's why you did not greet the person sitting beside you until you realized that it was special assistant to the governor. So, but you change that thinking, okay? You change that thinking, you replace it with a new mindset. And this mindset will now influence your behavior. So, for example, now you now have a mindset that everybody is important simply because they are made in the image of God. So you greet everybody without the pastor telling you, greet the person sitting beside you, whether the person is governor, whether the person is a peasant, whoever, you greet them, you honor them, you respect everybody, okay? Now, that is a new way of thinking. This is just an example. It affects every other thing. It affects every aspect of your life, how you spend your money, how you dress. It affects every detail of your life. And that was why earlier we mentioned that the important thing is to make sure that every detail of your life is lived to the glory of God, okay? So an important aspect of that process is renewing your mind. That is how you get transformed. And this process is what we call education, okay? So what exactly is education? It's the process of acquiring new knowledge, skills, and experience, and then applying what you learn to improve your life. Now think about that. If you pay attention to what we just said, that education is the process of acquiring new knowledge, skills, and experience, and then applying what you learn to improve your life, you'll find that there are two important aspects there, learning and application. If you only learn without applying what you learn, then you have only gained information. You have not truly been educated. Okay? And information will not help you find meaning in life. In fact, when you have too much information, it is called information overload. But I've never heard of education overload before. Okay? Because education is something that you assimilate. You assimilate it, you process it, and then it shows results in your life. That's why Paul was saying that give attention to these things. that your profiting may be evident to all. So that means when you educate yourself to a point, the more you educate yourself, the more people see the transformation in your life. Do you understand? But information is not like that. If you're just acquiring information, you're just acquiring information, you are not applying, you are not putting it to work, you will get some information overload, and then you are going to get frustrated at some point. Okay? But education is not like that. Education transforms you, it changes you. Okay? That's why the Bible makes it clear that learning without doing will only lead to self-deception. You won't find meaning by simply acquiring information and accumulating ideas. You have to apply what you learn. That is what will bring meaning to you. So if you apply what you learn, then your life will be meaningful. If you don't apply what you learn, you end up in self-deception. Okay? You can read more about that in James chapter 1, verses 22 to 25, and Matthew chapter 7, 24 to 27. The Bible is making us understand that those who apply what they learn will become firmly established in God's purpose for their lives, regardless of the confusion around them. They will see themselves as they really are. And this will in turn put them in a position where they can make necessary adjustments towards entering into the fullness of God's plan for their lives. Okay, so that is why it is important for you to constantly educate yourself. And this education that we're talking about has to do with renewing your mind. Okay, we want to be clear about that. It is not formal education that you get in the four walls of a classroom or in the university. All of that is good, but it's not enough. Okay, the education we're talking about here is self-education, and it is the process of consciously and consistently investing in your personal development and spiritual growth. Okay, so you need to read books, take courses, attend events, volunteer for courses that appeal to you, enroll in apprenticeship programs, take up projects, interact with people that paint a picture of what you see for yourself. You may not be able to exactly describe what your heart is yearning for, but when you see people that represent that yearning in your heart, you know. There are people in your life that, okay, or there are people that you know that you feel, if only I could be like this person, it's okay. Now, they say that don't be like somebody, okay, don't be a copy, be an original. See, the truth is you need to model your lives after some people, okay? Even Paul, he said, follow me as I follow Christ. So you need to have some people that you are following. You need to have somebody that models the kind of life you want to live. So look for this person or look for this kind of people and then learn from them. Subscribe to their training programs, read their books, attend their courses, relate with them as much as you can. And this does not necessarily mean approaching them that, okay, I want you to mentor me. No. There are a lot of ways you can learn from them without actually approaching that, okay, I want you to mentor me, except you are so led and you are ready for it. Okay. So, but without that, you can still learn from them. You can, work in their organization, for example, and see how things, how things work. You can take advantage of a lot of opportunities to learn from them. Follow them on social media, ask questions, intelligent questions. There are lots of ways that you can connect with them. This is the kind of education that we are talking about. It's self-education, education that you create by yourself, customized according to your needs. Okay, read books, take courses. I've said that before, so I want you to remember. Okay, so it's based on where you are going in life. Okay, so what you are going to read, the courses you are going to take, the people you are going to follow, the programs you are going to subscribe to is based on where you see yourself going in life. There is that nudge in your spirit, there is that nudge in your heart. When you are first getting started, you are going to be like an omnivore. You are just consuming everything. You just have that urge for growth. You are consuming everything. But as you proceed, some things will begin to resonate with you better. When you enter the bookshop, for example, there are some books that will be inviting you, okay, that buy me, okay. There are some that you just see them and then you walk away. Over time, you will discover that there is a common theme. There's a common theme that runs through these things, that runs through the kind of books that attract you, the kind of TV programs that attract you, the kind of events you want to be a part of, the kind of people you want to be around. You will find that common theme. So this common theme will now define the kind of education that you give yourself. But when you are just starting, just general self-development, general personal development, general self-improvement, read about habits, cultivate good habits, read about good values, cultivate the right values in your life, develop a value system, have a vision for your life. All of this general stuff, okay, start with that. Then after you have laid that foundation, you can now begin to specialize, as it were. You will begin to find, to narrow it down. There are some things now that don't appeal to me, no matter how attractive they seem. I just know that, no, this is not for me. And then I can pass it to other people, or I can ignore it. But there's some things that even if it requires me going the extra mile for it, okay, I'm going to do it. I remember leaving my work. I'm a workaholic. If you know me, those that know me know that I'm a workaholic. Fine. That's something that I'm trying to, I don't apologize for it, because even Jesus Christ said, either to I work and my father works, okay? But I'm trying to make sure that, okay, it doesn't affect other areas of my life. But as workaholic as I am, I have left my work completely, for full 7 days, for a whole week. I left my work completely to attend a program that I knew that, okay, this program is important for my self-education in the line of my life's calling. Do you understand? So as you grow, as you progress, you will be able to identify these patterns, identify the themes, and then know the common theme that unifies your interests. Then build your self-education around that. And more importantly, I've said it before, I'm going to emphasize it again, because we live in a generation that believes that, okay, you can do everything on your own and all of that. No, the truth is you need to learn from people. So look at the people in whom you see an image of what your heart is reaching out for. Then interact with these people. Read their books, connect with them in every way that you can. Now, I'm going to conclude with a few illustrations. Look at the lives of people like Joseph, Moses, Samuel, David, the disciples of Jesus, and then Saul of Tarsus, who we eventually came to know as Paul the Apostle. Now, when you study the lives of these people, you will find that they were not caught up in the confusion of trying to figure out their purpose or discover their calling. Think about it. Look at their lives. Take time to study them in the Bible. You will see that they were simply busy pouring their soul into what had been committed to them by divine providence. Now, God has a way of ordering everybody's lives into exactly where He wants them to be. As long as you don't resist the process, you are cooperating with Him. You will be exactly where He wants you to be per time. So wherever you find yourself per time, even if you find yourself in the belly of the fish like Jonah, okay, wherever you find yourself per time, be sensitive and be attentive to what God is trying to teach you. Okay, so that is what happened to everybody that has found their calling. Okay, let me use the example of Bishop Oyedepo, for example. Now that's an unusual example. Okay, it's okay, let me call it a spectacular example. It doesn't mean that yours will happen that way, but to illustrate what I'm talking about. Okay, Bishop David Oyedepo, now he's doing a lot of massive things. The federal government is having problems maintaining their universities, and then one man has 2 universities, and one of them is currently the best private university in Nigeria, and they are not stopping at that. Now, that's just a fraction of what he's doing. So he's a successful man in every sense of the word, and in every sense of the word, he's just successful, and you can see that he's living out his calling. Now, how did he find his calling? Like I said, his experience is spectacular and dramatic. Not everybody will have that kind of experience. So I'm only using it for the purpose of illustration. But what I want to point out is the fact that, according to him, he received the call. He had an 18-hour vision. Again, I'm saying it is spectacular. Don't expect an 18-hour vision. Okay, it depends on the kind of thing that God expects from you. People whose assignments are so big that they are going to attract a lot of criticisms, that they are going to face a lot of big challenges, they always have spectacular experiences, so that if they even want to doubt, they will remember that spectacular experience, and they will know that, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, now, having said that, so he explained that he was simply going to visit a friend or visit some friends. He was just doing visitation. He was just like, it's been a long time since I've seen this fellow. Let me go and check him. That was it. He wasn't looking for a calling. He wasn't looking for something. And then he had an encounter that just changed his life. And that was the beginning of everything that he's doing now. So what I'm saying is that your calling will happen as you simply invest yourself into what you are doing right now. What is it that God has given to you right now? What is it that God has committed to you? What job do you have? What role are you playing in your church? Are you involved in an organization? Maybe you belong to a community development association. What is your role there? Maybe you belong to organizations like Full Gospel, Businessmen's Fellowship, JC High, HiSec. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I, for example, I know a lot of people whose destiny started unfolding in Union of Campus Journalists in University of Ibadan and Association of Campus Journalists in Obafemi Awolowo University. I can mention names. Some of you that know me will know some of these people I'm talking about. I don't want to mention names, but their calling started unfolding by their involvement in these associations. So whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. That's the summary, okay? So invest yourself in whatever it is that you find yourself doing. Now, when you look at all of these people that I've mentioned, Moses, Joseph, Samuel, David, the disciples of Jesus, and even people that you yourself know, if you look around, you can find lots of contemporary examples. And some of them are people that you know personally. When you look at them, you discover that they were not running after like, okay, I want to find purpose. Where is my purpose? No, they were simply busy. Fine, of course, you have that consciousness at the back of your mind, but they were simply busy with what has been committed to them. You understand? And it is in the process of doing that that they entered into the most important assignments of their lives. So why don't you simply follow their example and stop worrying about discerning your calling and finding your purpose? You want to be sure, no, this is my purpose, this is my calling. I can clearly say that this is it. Okay, I want to be able to say that I had an 18-hour vision and God said to me this, that. See, that may not happen, and it is not going to happen for most people. So stop worrying about discerning your calling and finding your purpose. That's not the issue. That's not what to worry about. So what you need to do is to concentrate your energy on 4 things. Focus all your energies and all your attention on 4 things. 1, nurturing your relationship with God and relating intelligently with the people He has brought into your life. 2, maintaining a positive attitude that looks beyond the immediate and sees the big picture at all times. Like that janitor guy in NASA, he did not see himself as just mopping the floor. He saw himself as helping to put a man on the moon. Okay, maybe I should share another story here, but I don't want this to become too long. Just to illustrate the point about maintaining a positive attitude that looks beyond the immediate and sees the big picture, let me share another story. There are different versions of this story, but the essence is the same. So I want you to just pay attention to the essence of the story. A man came across 3 bricklayers. He was traveling and then he happened to find 3 bricklayers who were working at a construction site. The first bricklayer seemed unhappy at his job. He was chipping away and frequently looking at his watch. When the man asked what it was that he was doing, this first bricklayer responded very sharply, I'm hammering this stupid rock and I can't wait till 5 when I can go home. Okay, so the traveler continued and then he spoke with the second bricklayer, and this one seemed to be more interested in his work. He was hammering diligently. So when the traveler asked him, okay, what are you doing? He answered, well, I'm holding this block of rock so that it can be used with others to construct a wall. It's not bad work, but I'll sure be glad when it's done. I'm simply doing it for the money, and I need to keep body and soul together. Then the guy went ahead, that's the traveler now, he went ahead and met the third bricklayer. This other bricklayer now, this third bricklayer was hammering at his block fervently. He was taking time to stand back and admire his work. He would hammer at the rock, then take time to stand back and see what he had done. So he chipped off small pieces until he was satisfied that it was the best he could do. When he was questioned about his work, he stopped, looked at the sky, and then looked straight into the eyes of the traveler and told him, I am building a cathedral. Now, these 3 men were doing the same work, but they had different attitudes. Remember, we talked about attitude before, and this attitude is a function of their perspective. They had different attitudes, even though they were all working under the same circumstances. One was simply doing his job, the other had a career, while the third man had found a higher purpose. So you need to discover the higher purpose in what you are doing, or invest yourself in something in which you can find a higher purpose. It is very, very important, okay? So that is the second thing that you should pay attention to. maintaining a positive attitude that looks beyond the immediate and sees the big picture at all times. Be like that third guy that saw himself building a cathedral, or like the NASA janitor that saw himself helping to put a man on the moon. Okay. The third thing you should pay attention to is developing impeccable character built on a foundation of good habits and sound values. And finally, consciously and consistently pursue personal development and spiritual growth. That's the fourth thing you should pay attention to. Okay, if you do these things, you will not need to worry about discovering your purpose or anything like that. You will simply wake up to it. You simply wake up to your purpose. You won't have to find your calling either. You would have positioned yourself in such a way that your calling would most certainly find you. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments, or you can contact me directly via email. My email address is philip@philipamiola.org. That's philip@philipamiola.org. And if you have found this teaching useful, please share it with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter with the hashtag Mountain Moving Moment. Thank you.